Good morning. A warm welcome to the Humanist Communities in Silicon Valley Sunday Forum. My name is Alex Sabasi. I'm a member of the community. The Humanist Community is a chapter of the American Humanist Association, and humanism is a secular, reality-based philosophy of life that affirms our ability and responsibility to lead ethical lives of personal fulfillment. Those joining us for the first time, those joining us for the first time, we welcome you. We invite you to become a member. If you would like to donate to the Humanist Community so we can continue to present these forums, or if you want to see what our upcoming events are, you can find them all at our website, www.humanistoral.org. Today, members of the Atheist Community of San Jose and local chapters of the Freedom from Religion Foundation will tell us about the annual FFRC meeting they attended last month. Dana Treadwell and Judith Banister will lead the discussion, and you can bring your questions and answer either in person or on Zoom. Judy.
Yes, I'm Judith Banister from the Atheist Community of San Jose. We are co-hosting this event with the Humanist Community in Silicon Valley and the Freedom from Religion Foundation local chapter. The Atheist Community is proud to work with these other organizations. We do it whenever we can. We're stronger together. So I will pass this on to Dana Treadwell from the Freedom from Religion Foundation local chapter.
Thank you. Thank you. As I'm sure you're all aware, the Freedom from Religion Foundation is a staunch supporter and defender of the principle of separation of church and state. It was founded in 1978 in Madison, Wisconsin. We're now just shy of 40,000 members nationwide, and we have 24 chapters, local chapters in various states. We're one of the newer chapters, the San Francisco Bay chapter. We're up to 107 members. And I want to thank Judy very much for dedicating this forum to discuss the highlights of our recent FFRF convention in Denver. Thank you.
So Dana and I are going to tell you about the wonderful Freedom from Religion Foundation annual meeting that was held in Denver this year. We had about 10 people from our organizations, our local organizations, who went and represented our groups in Denver. We do want to ask other members who went to the Denver meetings to contribute something from what they observed there. We'll ask you to lead off the Q&A segment at the end of the talk. What happens at an annual meeting of the Freedom from Religion Foundation? Well, we highly recommend it. If you can possibly afford to go, we recommend that you go in future years. So we all arrived about Thursday afternoon and had a wonderful reception. And then all day Friday and Saturday was absolutely packed with meetings, presentations, panel discussions, and joint meals. The Sunday morning was the annual membership meeting. But throughout all of this, there are informal gatherings and coffee breaks and information tables from various secular organizations. A total of 667 attendees packed the hotel meeting rooms, and FFRF had to turn away would-be attendees because of a lack of space for them. One of our members tried to go and was told, no, you can't even register because it's too late. The first video we will show you is a welcome from the two co-presidents of FFRF, Annie Laurie Gaylor and Dan Barker, married couple who've been doing a terrific job running this organization for decades. Part of what they're talking about is the fabulous legal work of the Freedom from Religion Foundation. There's an entire floor of their headquarters in Madison, Wisconsin, devoted to the legal department. So most of the time, you think that legal people want to go to court, but they really don't. What they want to do in FFRF is dissuade people from doing the violations of separation of church and state that they're doing. So if they can get school teachers or mayors or whoever to back off from their violations without litigation. Of course, that's what they want, and usually that's what they get. Every once in a while, they have to go to court. So even though our current US Supreme Court is very backward in supporting, it now supports Christianity very heavily, most state constitutions actually support the separation of church and state. So FFRF legal department can actually use that in the courts. And part of what's discussed in this first video is something new called the FFRF Action Fund, because our organizations, all of our organizations here are nonprofit organizations, tax deductible, and we're not allowed to do political action. We're not allowed to support particular candidates or parties. So therefore, the Freedom from Religion Foundation set up a separate arm that is a political action group and is allowed to do political work. This year, of course, they have been very active, and some of us support both these organizations, FFRF, tax deductible, and the Action Fund, which is not tax deductible. Let us show you a short video telling you about their work in the last year.
Am I showing the video now?
Yes, you are, Zem.
Okay.
Is that good?
So, welcome to the 47th Annual National Convention of the Freedom from Religion Foundation, all you beautiful, godless heathens. We always begin with Dan singing and playing the historic 16th century free thought anthem, Die Gedanken sind frei, which means, my thoughts are free.
Die Gedanken sind frei, my thoughts freely flower. Die Gedanken sind frei, my thoughts give me power. No scholar can map them, no hunter can trap them, no person can deny. Die Gedanken sind frei. I think as I please, and this gives me pleasure. My conscience decrees, this right I must treasure. My thoughts will not cater to duke or dictator. No person can deny, die Gedanken sind frei. And should tyrants take me and throw me in prison, my thoughts will burst free like blossoms in season. Foundations will crumble and structures will tumble, and free people shall cry, Die Gedanken sind frei. And free people shall cry, Die Gedanken sind frei.
Where are you from?
I'm in Tampa, Florida.
Now, before we give our highlights of the 2024 year to date, please give a warm welcome to FFRF Events Manager, Sadie Pattinson. Well, it's great to see so many people's faces in person after knowing you've been members. Our membership is very large right now. We never imagined years ago. Here is FFRF's growth since 1987, when we had a whopping 1,800 members. Today, we are 40,000. Well,
Question.
actually, this month we are 3 shy of 40,000. So could some of you, 3 of you, find an extra member to bring us up to 40,000? Our goal is to be at 50,000. Here's a close-up of the last 10 years. Since 2014, we have almost doubled.
So this is a photograph of our staff in front of the world's only and first atheist digital marquee.
At our office in Madison.
Most of our staff are here working or speaking at the conference so you can meet them. And we want to show what this marquee says.
Gaylor's Godless Gang. And that's what religious right commentator Todd Starnes called FFRF. His exact words were Gaylor's Godless Gang of Thugs. But there's more. Our favorite description, also by Todd Starnes, professional pains in the ass since 1978.
We also want to introduce and thank our executive board members who oversee FFRF. They're here, and we want to honor the memory and legacy of distinguished philosopher and atheist Daniel C. Dennett, who was one of our honorary directors.
Religion in Cambridge in November. Our legal and legislative teams will tell you more about their appearances later today.
So free thought is global.
Our legal staff and legal director, Patrick Elliott, will give you the formal legal report this afternoon, but here's a sneak preview.
Some of those concerns have led to a lawsuit, right?
That's right. There's been a coalition of groups that have kind of come forward, led by the ACLU and the Freedom from Religion Foundation.
But a complaint from the Freedom from Religion Foundation led to the nativity scene removal, to the dismay of the locals.
The Freedom from Religion Foundation sent a letter to the city of Toledo saying that we write to request that the city move this nativity display from public property out of respect for the First Amendment and the diversity of the Toledo community.
Last week, the Freedom from Religion Foundation sent a letter to city officials requesting the nativity scene be removed.
A nonprofit called Freedom from Religion Foundation sending a letter to Battle Creek Middle School there in Spring Hill.
Over the past 7 months, Wisconsin-based Freedom from Religion Foundation says they have sent 3 letters to Rusk ISD telling the district that their student-led prayers before football games are unconstitutional and must stop.
And today we learned several advocacy groups are also considering a legal challenge.
It appears that Ryan Walters wants to blatantly violate the U.S. Constitution and the Oklahoma Constitution. You know, he wants to violate his oath of office to push his religious beliefs on not only families and students, but also on educators.
Now, the Freedom from Religion Foundation opened a 3-page letter to the mayor by declaring it unconstitutional.
On August 1st, attorney for the Freedom from Religion, Hirsch M. Joshi, wrote a letter on behalf of the foundation to the district after learning of the in-service turned worship experience.
You'll be hearing more.
And we want to thank Bruce for putting that together for us. Thanks, Bruce.
You probably know that FFRF is part of the coalition suing the state of Louisiana for passing a law requiring 10 Commandments posters in every public school classroom. In this cartoon by Steve Benson, Moses is looking at the 10 Commandments, which says, "Thou shalt not place these on public property." We face serious threats, and we're so grateful for your support for our legal work.
And here's another cartoon by Steve. This appeared in a full-page ad of ours in the New York Times soon after the Alabama Chief Justice invoked God 41 times in banning IVF and saying embryos in test tubes are legal children. The ad warns, zealots aren't limiting their crusade to banning abortion and mifepristone. Contraception and same-sex marriage are next on the chopping block. Individual rights, our very democracy, will not be safe until religion is kept in its place out of our laws. The ad says it's time to wake up to the growing threat of Christian nationalism. Laws must be based on our secular constitution and not on the wrath of God.
Judy Saint, who directs our Sacramento chapter and is here today somewhere, Judy is here, right in the middle. She initiated a voter campaign and raised $32,000 from all the chapters to place billboards in the swing states which say, "Be a voter, save democracy." Some of them are already up, shown here in Pittsburgh and in Madison.
And we put up a bonus billboard in Orlando, even though Florida's not a swing state, it's very important. And that's Central Florida Free Thought Society chapter leaders David and Jocelyn Williamson, and David is here today.
And this is one of 2 Be a Voter billboards up in Phoenix, and that's some of our Valley of the Sun chapter members. Billboards will be up in the remaining states of North Carolina, Georgia, Nevada, and South Carolina by next week. Thanks so much to our dedicated chapters for this and everything else you do.
So the takeaway is, vote like your rights depend on it, because they do. Our new public relations marketing director, Sarah Tetzlaff, who's here today, is overseeing a multimedia voter awareness campaign in October.
And we've been sounding the alarm for a year now against Project 2025's autocratic, theocratic playbook. You all know about that. Our slogan says, keep freedom alive, stop Project 2025.
Dan, you have to take that off. That's causing. You just have to take it off. So we put a billboard with that message up near the site of the DNC in August in Chicago. And as Claudette told you, we have a billboard with the same message a few blocks from this hotel. I hope you'll be able to find it. We sent you the address in your packet. FFRF Action Fund, FFRF's advocacy legislative lobbying arm, placed this billboard saying, "Your body belongs to you, not the church, not the state," in Orlando, to support Amendment 4, which will enshrine abortion rights in their state constitution and repeal the state's ban. That's FFRF Action Fund board member Jocelyn Williamson in the matching t-shirt. I'm proud to announce that our new Action Fund has given a total of $55,000 divided among 10 state abortion referenda groups to support their work all over the country. If you live in a state with a referendum, you'll be hearing a reminder to vote for it soon.
We ran a new ad warning about Christian nationalism on MSNBC the week of the presidential debate between
Okay.
before, during, and after the debate on the MSNBC broadcast. Let's watch that ad.
Thank you, Zem.
Christian nationalists are mobilizing. They want to turn America into a Christian theocracy.
Thank you, Zem. Dana.
Is this, okay, it's on, and I'm eating it as I've been instructed to do, although it seems really loud. I want to talk about one of the reasons that I go to the conventions, besides the phenomenal speakers, because they always have just an incredible lineup of speakers, is because it renews my faith in humanity every year. It is so refreshing to be surrounded by sane, non-superstitious, compassionate people from all over the country. And they have a lot of, and you get to hear people's personal stories, you know, interesting, amazing stories of what brought them usually from a religious upbringing to being atheists and ending up at the FFRF convention somehow. And how do you want to go to the next? This is yours. I don't want to touch it. So Judy put in this picture, and it shows Shayna on the right, Annie, Lori, and me. And she put this in here because Shayna's story, we found it very inspiring. She's 32 years old, blind. She was raised Christian. And in 2022, she decided to read the Bible. And as we know from Andrew Seidel's book, The Founding Myth, the road to atheism is littered with Bibles read cover to cover. Because once you read it, you know, it's mythology. It's mythology. Anyway, so this is what happened to her. This is her story. Her family was not pleased that she was now an atheist, but she decided to travel, even though she's blind, from Pennsylvania to Denver all by herself, not knowing a soul, and come to this convention. You want to go to the next one? And Judy, you wanted to tell me, to tell you really briefly, during the conventions as kind of a fun sideshow, FFRF does a fundraiser by raffling off what they call clean money. And this is money that was printed before 1956 when they added the "In God We Trust" to the paper currency. So they raffle those off, and these are the winners. They have various denominations, $1 up to 20, I think it is. Those are the winners.
And we're showing you the crowd there. Several of the speakers that we had at the convention, quite a few of them, were talking about the current crisis of white Christian nationalism trying to take over our schools, our local governments, our state governments, and our national government, of course, which is a threat to all of us, including moderate Christians, other believers in other religions, non-religious people, journalists, people who think and speak out. There were quite a few speakers on white Christian nationalism. One of them was Kate Cohen, and we'll give you a little glimpse of her talk here. Zem.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is that good?
Oh, no, wait. My apologies. This is still the same one.
I got a notice this morning that FFRF just posted the Kate Cohen thing on YouTube, so it's available.
If you're going to speak, you have to have a microphone. Please.
Zem, this is Judy. Zem, I think we're going to run out of time. And
Good morning, everybody. So happy to be back.
You don't want me to play this?
I think not. We're going to run out of time. We're going to go
So
ahead.
what do you want me to play?
Go ahead. We will go ahead to the student person who won the student essay award contest. Because
So I should play that right now.
Yes.
Okay.
Students through our essay competitions.
Start from the beginning.
The Freedom from Religion Foundation is proud to annually bestow about $125,000 a year in scholarships to free-thinking students.
Zim, please share the video.
Through our essay competitions, tuition relief scholarship.
You don't see it?
We see your directory.
Oh, hold on. How about now?
Greta Martinez, litigation legal assistant. It's not the right one, right? Is it?
It's the beginning.
The Freedom from Religion Foundation is proud to annually bestow about $125,000 a year in scholarships to free-thinking students through our essay competitions, tuition relief scholarships, and activist awards. We host 5 separate essay contests each year for students, including one open to all college-bound high school seniors, one for all ongoing college students, 1 devoted just for Black, Indigenous students of color, one for grad students, and one for law students. We're pleased to have 3 of our impressive essay winners here today to read their winning essays. I'll introduce them one at a time in order of their appearance. Our first student speaker is Rita Namkanya, who won $3,500 for her essay, which placed first in our essay contest for BIPOC students.
Move on to...
Rita is 18. She served as student representative in the Red Clay School District. Speaker is Finn Mosher. Finn won $3,500 for his essay, placing first in our contest for college-bound high school seniors. Finn is 18. He graduated last spring from a high school in Walla Walla, Washington, and is attending Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University, where he is studying for a bachelor's degree in aerospace engineering in Daytona, Florida. Finn received the President's Volunteer Service Award for time spent as the Washington State Future Business Leaders of American Industry Relations Vice President. He was also involved in environmental activism through his school's Green Club, for which he served as treasurer. In his spare time, he enjoys hiking, backpacking, reading sci-fi, and watching movies. Finn's winning essay is called The Good Book or the Textbook, and he fought a hurricane to make it here today, so let's give him an extra round of applause.
I'd like to dedicate this speech to my good friend Ahmad Ali and all of the people of Pakistan who remind me every day of why we must fight for a secular world. From the beginning of humanity's history, our greatest attribute has been curiosity. It transformed us from forest-dwelling apes into a world-spanning civilization, took us from the deepest ocean trenches to the depths of space. However, for as long as our curiosity has uplifted us, another of humankind's tendencies has restrained our potential. Whenever we run into phenomena exceeding the capacity of our comprehension, we are instinctively inclined to explain it away with the metaphysical. This instinct, what we call religion, is an albatross around the neck of every modern progressive society, the United States included. And the mass exodus, if you'll forgive my word choice, of youth from organized religion marks a great upturn in the fortunes of humanity. My personal history with religion illustrates in microcosm the power of its decline. Although raised atheist, I made the frankly ill-advised choice to convert to Christianity when I was 13, reverting back to atheism by 16. During my most devout phase, I had hoped to become a corporate defense attorney. Since my reversion, these ambitions have shifted, and I'm now studying to become an engineer in the field of astronautics, hoping to expand humanity's reach to the stars above us. These two phases of my life serve as a perfect contrast between the distinct mindsets of the religious and the nuns. When I was religious and pursuing law, I found comfort in the study of a preordained system, a life entirely within the known, learning the intricacies of an inscrutable box crafted by a higher authority. This mindset was complemented perfectly by religion, which told me there was no reason to attempt further understanding of the world around me. All the answers I needed were found in the Bible. Anything not contained within was not given to us to know. Now, with religion absent from my life, I want to help humanity understand all of existence, expand our limitless potential as far as it can take us. Now, I believe that nothing in this universe falls outside of the human capacity for understanding, so long as we keep our curiosity and the drive for scientific progress fierce. And it's not just me experiencing this newfound curiosity and respect for the sciences. According to Pew Research, nuns are 275% as likely as the religiously affiliated to believe in a scientific explanation for all things, even absent their current understanding, and 140% as likely to say science does more good than harm in American society. These numbers increase even further among atheists, agnostics, and the highly educated, with 7/10 of college graduates and 4/5 of atheists believing science does more good than harm. The implications of this data are tremendous. With nonism increasing among younger generations, the data predicts a drastic spike in both pursuit of and trust in the sciences. As Generation Z and beyond abandon religion, we will continue turning to science to understand the world around us. Our enduring human curiosity, the drive that's taken us so far, is finally freeing itself from the stupor of religions that told us we already knew everything. As we stare down generational crises, antibiotic-resistant bacteria, new forms of warfare, climate change, this shot in the arm to the scientific world will prove crucial in keeping humanity thriving for generations to come. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Oh, what I meant to say before that talk by Finn was that many of the people who make it to the annual meetings, of the Freedom from Religion Foundation are a somewhat older demographic, like some of us here. It's partly because it takes time, expense, and the lives of our members are busy. So FFRF tries to encourage the attendance of young non-believers, and one way is the contest, the essay contest. And Finn was an example of that. By the way, the caption was reading nuns, N-U-N-S, when of course it was nuns, N-O-N-E-S, those of us who do not identify with any particular religion. So the main speaker of the conference in Denver was very exciting, Ron Reagan, the son of President Ronald Reagan and Nancy Reagan. And we're going to give you the beginning of his speech and the latter part of his speech and skip a little bit of the middle because we don't have time for all of that. So I will pass this back to Zem to give us Ron Reagan's speech, the high point of our weekend.
I'm excited to introduce our next speaker. I normally don't wear a sports coat, but I did for this next speaker. Ron Reagan, as you know, he has some pretty famous parents, right? But he dances to his own drum beat, a household name. Since the ad started appearing in 2014, FFRF's membership has almost doubled. And of course, Ron has a lot to do with that. So on behalf of the FFR board, Ron, we thank you. And we also thank you for being an unabashed atheist, not afraid of burning in hell. Ladies and gentlemen, Ron Reagan.
So the Pope and a few of his cardinals are getting together in a swanky hotel room, swanky apartment overlooking St. Peter's Square. It's kind of a wine and crackers sort of soiree. And there's a young priest there who's meant to pour the wine and keep the chip bowls filled. And he's standing by the window and he looks out over the square, and in the distance, coming towards him, sees a strangely familiar figure. It's long hair, a beard. It's distinctly Middle Eastern looking, wearing what appears to be a loincloth with a tattered robe over his shoulders, and it suddenly hits him what's going on. Your Holiness, Jesus is coming. Yes, that's what we tell people. Now, could you fill up the wine a little, top that off of that? Okay, so he does that back to the window. Now the guy's a little closer, and he's gathering a crowd. The differently abled are well represented. There are people with skin conditions that may or may not be leprosy, and lots of children are flocking to him, as well as a lion and a lamb who seem to be getting along just fine. Your Holiness, Jesus is coming. Yes, eventually. And when he gets here, I'll be sure to put in a good word for you. Now, the chip bowls are getting a little low. Okay, the chip bowls. Back to the window. Now this guy is like right here. And I mean, come on. He's not even touching the paving stones. He's sort of hovering above them in a golden aura. There's a halo forming over his head. The stigmata are perfectly visible. Mary has shown up. I mean, Your Holiness, please. Jesus is here. What are you going to do? All right, everyone, look busy. I thought I'd ply you with a little bit of humor before plunging us into a spiral of despair. Only to pull up at the end, though. We're gonna do that. But first, before anything, I want to commend the good works that the FFRF is doing. Fine people involved in this organization. It's good and necessary work. And I also want to thank you all for having me here. Dan and Annie Laurie, after a few years, they feel they tolerate me again, so they send me an email and ask me to come. I'm always happy to do it. I love to see where my fellow godless people are up to. Yeah. So, may you live in interesting times, cursed the ancient Chinese, and why not? Interesting times seem like the way to go, right? Who wants to live in boring times? It's like a lifetime of nothing good on TV. Nothing but Punky Brewster reruns or something. But think about it. Interesting, yeah, sure. Ask the dinosaurs how interesting things were 65 million years ago. The fall of Rome, that was interesting. The Black Death in Europe, pretty interesting. Now you're saying, yes, but the Renaissance, the Enlightenment, those were interesting. Yes, they were, but in a sort of drawing room kind of way. Most of the people didn't even know they were happening at the time. Death, disease, destruction, the fires, famines, floods, those are the things that get people's interest. They're really, really interesting. Well, lucky us. Today we live in absolutely fascinating times. An unprecedented set of calamities is unfolding around us like some lotus blossom of the apocalypse. Most of these are of our own making, these problems. Yet, adding to the drama, there's this quirky little feature of human nature that seems to make us do far too little, too late, to address most of these issues. That is, if we do anything at all. Just a few highlights. Global warming, of course. Scientists have been warning about this, by the way, since the late 19th century. 19th century. For years, climate researchers have been warning us that breaching the 1.5 degree Fahrenheit boundary would open the door to an increasingly dire catalog of environmental disasters. Well, according to the most precise satellite measurements, for most of the last year, we have been at or beyond that threshold. 2023 was the hottest year on record until this year. And how's that been working out for us? Phoenix just recorded 110 days in a row above 100 degrees. That's nearly a third of the year. Temps have since dropped into the 90s, which in Phoenix amounts to sweater weather. At least their heads are above water, though, possibly because there is no water. Their aquifers have been turned into putting greens. If we're not burning, it seems we're flooding. Places you've never associated with floods pop up in the news. Connecticut? Really? Cars afloat, people canoeing down Main Street, dogs on rooftops, torrential rain, overflowing rivers, rising sea levels. A number of climate scientists now believe that most of Florida will be underwater by the end of the century. Yes. Some of you may be thinking, so there's an upside. That was terrible. And if there's anybody here from Florida, I ought to be ashamed of myself for even saying that. Really awful, awful there. So the highest point in the state is only 345 feet above sea level. And with the oceans rising as fast as they are, that little knob may soon become the entire state. 75 years we're talking about. That's one human lifetime. And we lose an entire state and Disney World. Think of the economic repercussions. Real estate gone, jobs disappeared, forced migration of millions of people, habitat and species loss. If they're underwater, are they still a state? What happens to the Electoral College? Will we have to modify the flag? Can we just swap Florida for Puerto Rico? These are pressing questions, and the state's governor, Ron DeSantis, has an answer. Stop using the term climate change. If we don't say its name, it can't get in. Sure, we all know about global warming. We're all concerned, unless, of course, we're still denying its existence, like a certain presidential candidate. We try to reduce our personal carbon footprint, but collectively on our kids. Food that isn't food, making us sick. Infertility rates spiking, birth rates tanking, leading to the coming population crash, which admittedly would be a benefit for every other living thing on the planet. And that old favorite, backed by popular demand, courtesy of guys like Kim Jong-un and Vladimir Putin, nuclear holocaust. Yes, indeed, duck and cover. Truly depressing, indeed. But don't worry, Elon Musk is going to move us all to Mars, where there's nothing but volcanic dust to eat, and the temperature is a balmy minus 80 degrees. Truly depressing, but very, very interesting. All right, now here's where we pull the plane out of its nosedive a little bit here. There is another threat, just as insidious, perhaps more immediate, that speaks directly to the work of the FFRF. The battle between democracy and authoritarianism. Around the world, and crucially, right here in America, authoritarianism, with its usual bedfellows, is gaining ground. The good news is, here in America, we have something to say about that. We still live in a democratic republic for now, but that could change faster than you think. As he left the Continental Congress, having helped draft our Constitution, Benjamin Franklin, as you probably know, was asked, "Do we have a monarchy or a republic?" "A republic," he replied, "if you can keep it." Democracy is both new and terribly difficult to maintain. It is fragile and needs constant tending. We think of ourselves as the oldest democracy on earth, but for roughly half our history, women weren't allowed to vote, never mind the slaves. You can, in fact, make a strong argument that we were not truly a democracy until the civil rights legislation of the mid-60s, particularly the Voting Rights Act. Pretty newfangled, this democracy thing. Work in progress. We're still figuring it out. And some folks still don't cotton to the idea of every citizen having the right to vote. The next months will tell us whether our experiment in representative government that began nearly 240 years ago will continue, whether ideas like liberty and justice for all will spread around the globe or wither and vanish like Lindsey Graham's spine or Lauren Boebert's cerebral cortex. Democracy is a conversation, sometimes an unruly argument. It's messy. It requires compromise. You have to accept losing. Yes. Much of this does not come naturally to barely evolved apes, including a certain unevolved presidential candidate. Authoritarianism, on the other hand, is easy. It may be the human default setting. We shouldn't fool ourselves into thinking that an urge for self-determination is universal, that a yearning for freedom and liberty is baked into everyone's genes. There are many people in the world who long for the dubious comforts of tyranny, who are waiting for the strong man to arrive. He might ride in on a tall horse. He may have a funny mustache, or slather his face with pumpkin-hued pancake and sport a Baroque comb-over. Doesn't matter. There will always be gullible victims who clamor for his grift. This is where religion, perhaps the original grift, joins the picture. How many current autocrats have linked themselves to a church, have exploited religious fervor for their own ends? Vladimir Putin doesn't strike me as a particularly pious fellow, more a poison my political foes, invade neighboring countries, threaten nuclear war kind of guy. Yet he's very chummy with the Russian Orthodox Church, promoting himself as a defender of the faith. And they, in turn, not wanting to be poisoned or nuked and always drawn to power, have bear-hugged him back. Know who else hearts Putin? The evangelical right here in the United States. They see him as a warrior for Christendom. Many say they'd rather he was our president than any stinky, squishy, godless Democrat. Narendra Modi of India has been fanning the flames of Hindu-Muslim animosity, a pool of gasoline that barely needs a match. Like many authoritarians, past and present, he has discovered that demonizing a vulnerable minority, in this case Muslim citizens, boosts your chances of re-election. He's also an example of autocrats forming mutual fan clubs. When Putin invaded the Ukraine and the West responded with sanctions, Modi was eager to lend a hand to Putin. In Afghanistan, the ruling Taliban have married governance with the worst impulses of religious zealotry. Afghan women already deprived of the right to an education, jobs, or the simple liberty to leave home without a male chaperone, even while wearing those beekeeper suits. Well, they've got more problems here. Now, because things in Afghanistan weren't tragic enough already, women are officially barred from speaking in public. Not public speaking, just speaking. The Afghan men, as usual, have nothing interesting to say. What is it with so many religionists that makes them so terrified of women, that makes them want to deprive women of basic rights, makes them want to do terrible things to women? When the Gazans stormed across the Israeli border on October 7th, opening the latest act in their long-running territorial religious conflict, they had been told to do as they pleased to the people in the kibbutzim. Apparently, what pleased many of them was to hunt down young girls, gleefully raping, torturing, mutilating, and murdering those they didn't drag back to the howling mobs in Gaza as hostages or trophies. Was that a political statement? Religious fervor? Or a particularly perverse, shamelessly sadistic fusion of the two? And let's not let Israeli leader Benjamin Netanyahu off the hook. He only clings to power through the good graces of the right-wing religious fanatics in his governing coalition. They embrace violence every bit as much as Hamas. They, too, viewing the battle through their own religious lens, see a zero-sum conflict with no point in compromise. Authoritarian rule, whether secular or religious, shares certain features. It's almost invariably bigoted, racist, misogynistic, anti-Semitic, Islamophobic, homophobic. It rules by fear, seeks out vulnerable groups to victimize, gay people, trans kids, folks of other religions, folks with no religion, of course, and immigrants, the poor. It moves quickly to demonize, stifle, and finally shutter a free press. It subverts independent courts. Elections become shams, with leaders ultimately being elected for life. Think Viktor Orban in Hungary. Dictators aren't up for a discussion, which pretty much precludes any real stab at democracy. If they're not claiming to speak to God and for God, they're claiming to be God, like the Kim family in North Korea. Kiss their asses or go straight to a fiery hell. We're not quite ready for the burqa here in America, not quite living in a handmaid's tale, but don't kid yourself, there are plans afoot, and not just Project 2025. aiming to create an avowedly Christian nation under the thumb of ideologically vetted white males. Let's call them MAGA Christians. The folks plotting to take over would purge the government of non-believers in God, in Trump. They'd stack the judiciary and Justice Department with cronies, reward sycophants, and use the power of the state to punish their opponents. And don't forget, girls, they'll want to monitor your menstrual cycles and gynecological visits, the better to punish you for even considering an abortion. If you get pregnant, they'll force you to stay pregnant. It's their call, not yours. Not that they really care about fetuses, they just want to punish you for having sex. One look at Samuel Alito's pinched, angry face tells you it's all about the sex. The usual caveat: there are plenty of believers who cherish freedom, even for non-believers like us, who value the separation of governance and theology just as we do, who carry their faith into the public square quietly and with dignity, who don't try to impose their beliefs on those who don't share them. But here in the US and elsewhere, their sane voices are increasingly being drowned out by a braying mob of religious extremists bent on bully power. And too few people in public life and the media seem willing to stand up to them. Worse, here at home, the candidate for president from one of our two major parties has linked up with Christian nationalists. A once proud party, at least marginally sane, is now enthralled to a grifting sociopath perfectly willing to cater to religious zealots despite his own utter lack of faith. I mean, is there anything funnier than watching Donald Trump, as Charles mentioned, dodge the question, what's your favorite Bible passage? I mean, sure, he can hawk Bibles online, he just hasn't read one. But he's certainly relentless. Got a lot of energy, old Don. As that prophetic poet of the apocalypse, William Butler Yeats, put it, the best lack all conviction, while the worst are full of passionate intensity. Well, the best of us had better absorb some of that intensity. There is a lot on the line this year. We don't usually wake up in the morning thinking we have to save democracy, or our nation, or the world, for that matter. But here we are. History has tracked us down. Like it or not, this is our moment. And since it's quite likely the only one we'll get, we'd better make the most of it. The past is gone. The future is a toss-up. And here we sit, right now, flipping the coin. The present moment, the only moment we will ever know, our moment to make a difference, our moment to matter. We can cut our emissions of CO2 and lessen the consequences of climate change, but the carbon we've already pumped into the atmosphere will be heating the planet for centuries. Microplastics, maybe we can come up with something that eats the stuff. Most likely, archaeologists a million years from now will identify our era by its layer of plastic. PFAS, here to stay, whether we want to think about it or not. But authoritarianism, particularly the homegrown variety, that's another matter. We can do something about that. It doesn't take a degree in physics or chemistry or engineering. We just have to look the issue squarely in the eye. Don't fall for the false equivalencies. Don't buy the both sidesism and whataboutism. When somebody gets indignant about Kamala Harris not doing enough press interviews, point out that the other guy tried to overthrow the government. Maybe we shouldn't give him another chance? So, pretty simple. Get out and vote. Tell your friends and coworkers to vote. Have them tell their friends and coworkers to vote. Tell your crazy uncle with the Let's Go Brandon t-shirt the election already happened and he missed it. Sorry, Uncle Bob. Vote like the nation depends on your vote, because it does. Vote like your life depends on it, because it does. Vote for your children, vote for your grandchildren, not to reclaim a mythic past, but for right here, right now, and for all the present moments yet to come. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Zem, for your assistance. Thank you. We're going to mention a few other people who were there and then open for Q&A.
We'll hustle through this because we're out of time. Dick Hewitson calls these conventions the Academy Awards for atheists and agnostics, because the FFRF gives out a lot of awards. And here, Charles Blow is receiving the Emperor Has No Clothes Award, which is given to people who use their medium to tell it like it is how Annie Laurie puts it. So Charles Blow, he is a columnist for the New York Times. He's also a political analyst on MSNBC. And he calls out Christian nationalism in his columns. And he also, at the convention, he called BS on the people who claim that they need to know more policy details about the Democrats, what they're going to do. And he says, no, you don't. Given what's at stake in this election, no, you don't. I also wanted to point out with him the accessibility of the speakers at the conventions, because during the breaks and during the meals, you can actually talk to the speakers. And he was talking during one of the breaks about people were wondering whether he thinks that this election is going to end up at the House, where each state then gets a vote, and that would put Trump in the White House. And he said he couldn't predict that, but what he could predict is chaos, as every vote is contested. Can you go to the next one? Another winner of the Emperor Has No Clothes Award is Bonnie Garmus, who wrote Lessons in Chemistry. And as Annie Laurie said in her introduction, Bonnie, the author, made atheism utterly charming through her characters. And the other note on this is that the Apple series, the TV series, is not the book. She was very disappointed in how it handled atheism. So you really need to read her book. What else? Did you want to? Yeah, you're gonna wrap it up. Okay.
Yes. So we're done. We're ready for Q&A. I don't know how we do this. Scott, tell us what to do.
If anyone, can you hear this? If anyone wants to speak or has a question, you could raise your hand, use the raise hand feature, or you could ask a question in chat, and I'm sure Scott will find it. If you're here, I'll see you raise your hand.
Oh, yeah.
Stop sharing. Stop sharing.
Oh,
Sharing. That'll
Stop share.
See more people.
Fine. I do want to mention that people who went to the meeting in Denver, we welcome your input. And if you want to add further to what we brought up, there was so much going on there and it was just priceless. So if you want to add something, we'd appreciate it.
Yeah, I just want to add, I thought Ron's speech was wonderful.
Sorry, whoops.
Sandra, did you have your hand up there? You can unmute yourself.
I wanted to give a quick note that the videos that you saw, including Ronald Reagan's, they are on Free Thought Today YouTube channel, if you want to look them up there. Charles Blow's isn't up yet, but they keep posting more every day.
Chat to people that attended if they want to say something.
Yeah, we did.
Oh, you have a question here, Rick?
Oh, yeah, I was one of the people who attended, and I just wanted to say going to one of these events is really a great experience. It's basically, 2 12-hour days, 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. of just hanging out with people with similar experiences and thoughts with you. And the people that are there aren't just the casual, they show up every week. These are people who flew in from every state in the country and wanted to be here and wanted to hear the speakers and talk about the speakers. So when you sit down for dinner or have a cup of coffee, you are sitting with somebody who is passionate and actually believes a lot of what you're there to hear. So it's a great experience. I'd recommend it if you haven't been for one yet.
All right, thank you, Rick. Oh, I should also add, if I hand you the speaker, give your name first, because I don't know everyone here. And thank you, Rick, for doing that. Pardon?
Ask them to do raise hand.
Oh, yeah, to raise your hand, in case you've been trying to do that, hit the react icon at the bottom of your screen, and you'll get a menu, and click on the raise hand button on the menu. I may have to start calling out. Yes, your name?
Yeah, my name's Amy. I'm usually go to a Sunday assembly because it's fun. I forgot what I was going to say.
All the time.
It does.
Oh, well. Yeah.
Hold it close to your mouth.
Okay. Yeah, Ron and I really enjoyed the convention. The speakers, as has already been said, were, well, you heard Ronald Reagan, and they were all quite fabulous. But what you also heard from him and from what we heard from the rest of the speakers, unfortunately, was a little bit scary. So this particular convention, I found to be the most disturbing in that way.
I remember that.
Okay.
I want to know what is the proportion of, can I continue? Yeah, okay. What is the proportion of younger people, like say 40 and under, to older people?
I think that's for Dana.
Yes. We don't know what the exact proportion is, but if you look around the room at the FFRF conventions or American Atheist conventions or the Humanist conventions, I imagine, mostly older people, mostly people over 50. The younger people don't make it because of money and time, and I don't know what other reasons, but the data show that the younger cohorts are more non-religious than the older cohorts in America. So our meetings are too heavily older people. So that's why they do all these essay contests and all these things to bring in young people to, and they give discounted registration and all sorts of things to help young people come to these meetings. And they do succeed to some extent. We had some wonderful young people at the meeting, but the predominance was older people because we have more time and money.
Okay, thank you, Judy. And that was a good question. I wonder how many people here in the room have ever felt that, or that their neighbors, that the people they deal with, are overly religious. And I was wondering how many people here or out there feel that the people they work with are overly religious. Because I've always, at work, I've always dealt with engineers, and they're not particularly religious group. Did you want to make a comment? Okay. Everyone around you.
I do want to mention, this is Judy, I do want to mention that some of us come from California and other reasonably progressive states. And in our particular locality, we're not as surrounded by religious nuts as a lot of the people who were at this meeting. But we had people coming from Bible Belt communities, rural areas, really backward and extremely Republican areas. And so they're just surrounded and they have a real tough time. but they come and it's just inspiring for them to come to the annual meetings of FFRF and get surrounded by thinking people and non-religious people. It's a joy for them.
Hey, thank you. Dana, Jerry?
Yeah, I once thought that it was impossible for a humanist to be fundamentalist. But I remember a time that four of us were chatting right outside of a humanist forum at the Mitchell Park library. And one of them started saying, it must be true. And he was slapping the book he was holding, which was Corliss Lamont's book. He had a fundamentalist attitude towards that book. I'm done.
Dick, I see you've got your hand up.
Well, it's interesting what we're just discussing, because I live at Brookdale in San Jose, and I swear that I've never been anywhere in my life where I'm so surrounded by religious people. I think I'm the only person here who's a non-believer. There's 300 people here.
Do you tell them that? Or has it come up?
What's your question?
I was wondering if your lack of religion has come up with the people at Brookdale.
Oh yeah, I'm considered a very outsider.
Okay, thank you. Sandra.
Well, perhaps we need to be more evangelistic. Since I've become handicapped and had to use a walker or a wheelchair, any number of people have come up to me and said, oh, let me pray with you. I hope that Jesus restores you, or something like that. And so why don't we go up to people and say, I'm a humanist, and I hope that the rest of humanity supports you in your problems, or something like that. If we could just think of something to say so that we don't have to think that everybody in the world is religious, or that only people who believe in Jesus are going to be supporting us.
Okay, thank you. All right, I haven't really been confronted with it. I did have one person I was chatting with. He was referring to another engineer. He was telling me he's an odd person. I said, how so? He says, well, he's an atheist. And I said, well, so am I. And he kind of laughed nervously and said, oh. And I think it was probably a good event. It showed he had committed a faux pas.
Should we wait until we announce it, not just say $10
Yes.
and will be announced?
Yes. Okay, if there are no more questions, oh, excuse me.
I think actually, as mentioned before, I have every coworker that I work with are highly religious. My family, highly religious. I have 2 Facebook accounts just so I can see my family who's always talking religion, and then the people who aren't so overzealous religious on the other one. And in the account that is with all my family and all my coworkers and everything, I am seeing a ton of people who support Project 2025 and who support the agendas that are coming up. So all we can do with that is the polls are open right now. You can send in your ballot right now. The polls to go in person will be open for 11 days, 10 days before the election. So find your poll. All of the polls will be open for at least 4 days before the election here in California. Please, if you don't want to send in your ballot, you want to do it in person, please get there and do it in person. And if you do want to mail in your ballot, if you haven't already done it now, please do it now. Across the board, it's not just the presidential election. It is all of the Republicans who are supporting Project 2025 that we need to look at as well. Please vote. Where do you work? I work in a major driving school in the Bay Area. Driving school. teaching people to drive, getting their license in traffic school. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I see one hand up there. Okay, there's one hand up here, and I can't see your name because the speech bubble is covering it. David, you're on, and you're muted. Still muted.
There I am. Yes, in response to what Sandra said in terms of responding to religious statements, I found something that was helpful. There was a supermarket checker who, when I would buy my groceries, would say, "Have a blessed day," when I would buy things. I replied to her, "Have a rational day." And she was somewhat surprised, but thanked me and has not said, "Have a blessed day" to me since.
Nice. You're going to get a round of applause for that. Did you have your hand up, Masuma?
Yeah, first I have to mention that someone mentioned that California is a progressive state, so it's pretty non-religious. I kind of disagree because all my co-workers at work are pretty religious. So I do keep my mouth quiet because I don't want to be identified being an outsider. So I just listen to people rather than, but so one time I do divulge that they're showing a picture of some religious fundamentalist and they're going to go to that convention. And there was a picture of a dog. I said that, what is the religion of that dog? Does dog believe in God? Without even realizing that I was really poking into the fabric of religious fabric and of the fundamentalists. So even my neighbors, all of them are religious. And coming from the Indian subcontinent, I find more than 99% are also religious. So how do you, my question to this group is, it's not just the survival strategy of people who don't have any religion or God, but also how to educate people without offending them and show what is real.
Thank you. I was going to comment that Mark here had a comment about his dog's religion once. And said his dog is not an atheist. His dog believes in God. He believes I'm God. Dick.
Oh, I just wanted to say again, this strange place I live. That's one reason why this group is important to me, because I really feel alone here. But one of my favorite things I've been doing lately is, as many of you know, I was an Episcopal priest. So when people ask me what I did for a living, I tell them I was a professional magician. I was paid a salary to change crackers and wine into the body and blood of Jesus. They don't laugh.
Michael.
Yeah. Okay. Maybe it's because I was never religious myself and I am not surrounded by any religious people. I don't see religion as such a big problem here. And actually, I'd like to have a chance to talk to some really religious people and have some theological discussions maybe with them. But I rarely have this chance. But my impression is that maybe religion is a part of a problem, and it could be a big part of a problem, but it's not the problem. So if you think about this, Trump is not particularly religious himself. Yes, he is supported by this extreme evangelical Christian sect, let's call it this way. But that's not, that this can help him, of course, but that's not the main part of his appeal. Putin, of course, is not religious. And if you think what they have in common, Putin and Orthodox Church, or say Hamas and Taliban that are Muslim, and North Korean dictator who is not, forgot his name, who is not religious at all. There is no common denominator if you look into religion. The common denominator is that they all are authoritarian dictators. And they can employ any suitable ideology, religious or secular, but that's not their main danger. So I'm wondering that maybe this focus on religion, it's maybe misplaced a little bit. Maybe we have to see the real danger in these authoritarian tendencies, and that many people are more comfortable with them than with democracy, as Ron mentioned. So that's my comment.
Okay, thank you. Sandra.
Well, I've been reading some things lately about how badly women have been treated, not throughout American history, for one thing, that many of them were sent to insane asylums because the Bible says they're supposed to be subservient to their husbands, and if they weren't, if they spoke up, well, their husband could consign them to the insane asylum. And if we're looking for the common denominator, perhaps all of the right wing are anti-women. And even Trump, maybe that's what appeals to them, because he disrespects women. So if we look at the current that runs underneath this, maybe that's not so crazy.
Good point. Yeah. I also like the point Michael made about the appeal. I think part of the appeal of religion is the same as the appeal to authoritarianism. I don't have to make these decisions. And especially in the case of religion, I want to have right and wrong written down in a book so I can know what I can get away with. According to the Bible, I can still buy and sell slaves, so I'm cool with that. And it seems like half the country is kind of likes authoritarianism. Okay, if there are no more comments, did Dana, or did you want to say anything before we sign off? Okay. I want to thank you all for coming. It's been fascinating. Oh, Michael.
Yeah, I just thought that if there are no more hands, one more comment, that maybe it's a little too late to think now what we can do about this. So apparently voting, but we live in California, so we know how California will vote. And many of them, many of us probably already voted. But we have to think ahead. We have to think what to do with this tendency that Alex just mentioned, that so many Americans actually feel not to be afraid or disgusted by these authoritarian tendencies and ideas. I'm afraid it's too late to do something about these elections. Trump is poised to win, and if not, then it will be another contested election with a very probably difficult resolution for them. But if we survive this election, we have to think ahead. we have a big problem in our country.
Yeah, agreed.